So, we're back here for day 6 of the 2019 Australian Track and Field Championships. My name's Ben Offrains and I am joined here by Tamsin Manu.
Oh, it's fantastic to be here. The biggest question I've had so far this morning is, should I use Lynchy's headphones or my middle ones? Should we leave Lynchy's alone, like just, you know, out of respect, a mark of respect, because he's not here for today's session?
I think so. Hang your headphones up for Lynchy. He's not around today. He's actually a pretty lame excuse off being a best man for a guy's wedding.
It's very lame. Very lame excuse.
Yeah,
I mean,
I wouldn't miss athletics for that.
No.
You know what?
Not at all. And I tell you, he's missing a fantastic day.
Oh, he is.
There's some really great finals coming up this evening, but we've also got some great races this morning, some good field events, and the exciting thing for especially the Opens, what we're looking for is there's going to be athletes today that are going to etch their names into that, you know, they're going to get their tickets stamped for Doha World Champs later this year, and then there's some 400s on where hopefully you're going to see those athletes fighting for the positions of that relay that's coming up in the World Relays, and they're always a fun championship. I think that's an event that the IAAF has put on lately. You know, we've just seeing the walk from last night on the screen, and we're seeing a few changes from the IAAF in terms of how they're trying to make our sport more exciting, how they're trying to package it up so that it fits TV schedules of the modern era a little bit better. And I think the World Relays concept has been an absolute winner, and it's one of those things where athletes are able to, if they're fortunate enough to be in those events, to do team sports and make the track and field a little bit more teamly, which has always been one of the hard things with our sport where it is quite individual.
Yeah, it certainly is. But it is good to see that the governing body is consciously thinking about this stuff, trying to improve, trying to better the sport, evolve with the times. So I'm excited about where it'll take the sport in the years to come. As we briefly saw some highlights from yesterday. Obviously we saw the men's 100-metre heats. We saw the men's 1,500-metre heats along with the women in the same. And you know what? I think those men's and women's events are set up for some exciting finals, and obviously today being the 100 finals, the men's 400 finals, the women's 400 finals, and the men's 800 final. Whew! I tell you what, I am excited.
Oh, it's going to be
excited.
A cracker of an afternoon of track and field. But this morning we have on the screen, we've got the women's javelin throw ambulant open, and that was just Kira Bennett-Smith. I've got the wrong start list here. Beautiful start here. So I think on the screen there was Kira, and she's in the under 17 from memory. Javelin. Yep, I've seen her throwing through the season. Talented javelin thrower. I'll get there, guys.
It's all right, you're already doing better than Lynchy. See, when he's not here, I can just throw shade at him all day.
Okay.
Shade I shall throw.
And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort out these start lists that I've got in the right order, because I can see on the screen that I definitely don't have the ambulant girls. Let's see, completely in the wrong order. Ah, there we go.
So, I spoke to Dane Bird-Smith last night after his walk, and he did promise me that he would be here this morning for these walks to come and join us. Now, I haven't seen him at all yet.
Oh.
So at the moment, he's letting us all down. He's letting all the viewers down. He's letting the live stream down. We were relying on him to be here to give us that critical analysis of the walk, because we do not know the technical terms.
I know.
We just call out heads, shoulders, knees and toes
Knees
and
and
hope
toes.
that it's correct. So he said he was even going to bring his jumper, because you weren't here the other day, and he promised us they would come back for the first walks in the week.
Yeah.
And he goes, I'm just going to go home. It's just around the corner, only 5 minutes away. I just need to get a jumper, and then I'll come back. Well, didn't come back.
Well, maybe we should appeal to his heart and say we gave him so much love on the stream last night. Because, I mean, it was hard not to because he was so fantastic. Maybe he's just having a little bit of a well-earned sleep in. And hopefully we will see him later in this session because...
No, not good enough. No.
He's just walked 10K in some ridiculous time. He was just off the Aussie record.
Did Dane's mum not say that he would be back out here again walking the next day?
Yes, she did say. Well, we did ask when will he... You asked him when he was going to be able to recover and be out there to compete. And
he's back out there for a hard session a couple of days later, as if he can't come and sit here on the stream.
I know.
So, Dane, if you are watching, you better get yourself down to Sydney Olympic Park Athletic Centre pretty quickly, because we are about to get underway with the first event of the morning, which will be the women's 5,000 under 17 walk. And it'll also be a joint race with the under 18 women's 5,000 metre walk as well. So once they get underway, we'll roll through that start list for you. And it's a clean start, which is good to see. Obviously, you'd never want to see any false starts in a distance event like this. And it's a big field, 25 starters, 13 in the 17s. And as we go through this via hip number order, and as the athletes come around into the straight, you'll see them just walk past a set of red cones there. That is the pit stop. So if they receive their warning, a set number of warnings that they have to then stop in the pit for a minute, I believe. So that's the area they want to avoid. They don't want to go near the orange cones. So walking with hip number 1, it's Larissa Vickers from Queensland. In 2, Gabriella Hill, also from Queensland. 3, it's Emma Blanche from New South Wales. 4, Jada Thompson from New South Wales. 5 is Kira Ross from South Australia. 6 is Alana Dingley from Victoria. 7 is Cameron Navitas from Queensland. 8 is Hannah Ireland, West Australia. 9, Brooke Martin, New South Wales. 10, it's Alana Pitcher, also from New South Wales. And another New South Wales athlete in Madison Callaway. She'll be wearing hip number 11. So in 12, it's Grace Lurie from Victoria. And rounding out that under 17 field, it's Alana Pert from Victoria. As we switch over to the under 18s, it's Kathleen Mahoney from Victoria. Olivia Sandry will wear 15 from South Australia. 16, Hannah Parker from New South Wales. 17, Elise Brennan, also from New South Wales. And then another New South Wales athlete wearing hip number 18 in Bridget Bell. Number 19 will be Caitlin Hannigan from Queensland. 20, Brittany Robinson from New South Wales. 21, Charlotte Hay from Victoria. 22, Hannah Bolton from New South Wales. 23, Rebecca Porowski from Victoria. Number 24 is Holly Cocking from Victoria. And rounding out the field, the 25, Hannah Manning from the ACT.
It's a big field out there, isn't it, Ben?
It only took me 400 metres to introduce them.
Well, I tell you, you know, when it's so early in the morning, these athletes have had to get up and have their schedule ready for the early morning start. I went for a run this morning and I could see athletes turning up at the track at 6:30 a.m. this morning. So it is early. They would have prepared themselves for this early start. The best thing is leading into a championship, you know the timetable early, so you can do your training at the same time that you're going to be competing in the race walk. So these athletes will have been up for a few hours now, unlike some of the people who are just tuning in on the stream.
Yeah, and that's one of those things is sometimes competing early in the morning can be hard because if you're not up early enough, your body hasn't woken up enough, your body hasn't had time to sort of warm itself up, get limber, get used to being not asleep, to then come here and try and perform at 100%.
But it happens at major championships.
It
You
does.
see with senior teams, you have, and this is where it gets tricky because with rooming arrangements, you have athletes that are competing at night and you have those athletes who are early in the morning. The marathon is notoriously an early start. The race walk is notoriously an early start because, you know, it's a summer sport and a lot of the games are held at places where it gets quite hot. So you want to get the start off when the the day is yet to really start because you don't want the heat of the day to be at that back end of the race. So it's good practice for these juniors to be learning to get their bodies accustomed to waking up early and seeing what works for them and what don't, because a lot of the times it's just trial and error. And the only way that you know is if you've gone out and you've done it before and you've learned how to prepare for those early races. But the thing is, even breakfast comes into it. You know, you need to be able to still eat your breakfast and the last meal that you're going to eat before you compete at the same space that you would if it was an afternoon meet. So I think Sydney Olympics across the road, I was the first event of the whole track and field program. It was an early start. We had to have breakfast at, 5:30, 6 a.m., which as a runner, a sprinter, middle distance runner, it's a very early start because, you don't have that luxury of just walking a couple of laps and getting your body going. You've got to be straight on it when the gun goes. So then you have to wake up even earlier just to make sure that when that gun goes, you are awake like it's a nighttime race.
Yeah, and the hard one is, especially for the distance events that are out of stadia, who start so early. So the 20, 50K walks, the marathon, they start like 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning. They start super early.
So
and a lot of
early.
those athletes have routines, as you say, and some of them are needing to be up 4 or 5 hours before their event in order to get in their breakfast, get the meals, get enough time for the body to wake up.
Yep.
Next thing you know, they're up 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning trying to prepare for an event that starts at 7 or 8.
Yep.
And that is something that can throw a lot of people out, especially if you're not used to it, you haven't practiced that, because you're going to have to go to bed super early and all your preparation, because it's not like these events have rounds. It's one event. You know it's at that time for a long period before your event.
Yep.
So it's one of those things you start to adjust to that routine that you need to get in order to make sure you're peaking at that time in the morning.
Which is just, I think, and this is what the juniors should be looking at their junior career as doing, it's preparing them for that next step up to seniors, and everything that they do, including coming out here and race walking in the morning, is preparing them for what it's going to take to be at that elite senior level. So we see Caitlin Hannigan, I think, is at the front of that pack. It's really difficult to see at the moment because the sun glare, which is a really lovely thing to be saying in terms of what we've seen over the last couple of nights with the rain. The sun's beating down already, as you can see them coming out of the shade into the sun. And it's just a little difficult to be able to tell, but I think that's definitely Caitlin Hannigan from Queensland out there pushing the pace early. She's in the under 18 5K walk, and she's being trailed very closely by Cameron Novanets, isn't it? It's Novanets of Queensland also. So these girls would have race walked against each other before. They'd know a lot about each other's techniques and strengths and weaknesses. Because this is the kind of event where middle distance and up, I think when people say always focus on yourself in terms of being a track and field athlete, because it's all about what you do. I think in some of these events where you start to stretch into tactics coming into it, you need to know what your competitors' strengths and weaknesses are. So they will have race walked against each other a few times, so they'll know what each other's race plan is probably going to look like.
So as we just run through that order as they came past the finish line. So it is Hannigan currently leading, followed by Novanets. Then it's Blanche from New South Wales. Then Pert from Victoria. And then we move, and they're all in the under 17. Then we move on to the 18s. First across the line in the 18s. Actually, sorry, Hannigan is the 18. So Hannigan's first in the 18s. Then we've got Novanets first in the 17s. The next placed in the 18s will be Bolton from New South Wales. And then we have Sandri, also an 18. Then back to the 17s in Gabrielle Hill from Queensland. Then we go to Bridget Bell from New South Wales, an 18. And Hannah Manning from the ACT also as an 18.
And that's the difficult thing in this race. You obviously, your main priority is to win that medal. And so some of these girls will know that the person that they're race walking next to may not necessarily be the person that they're directly competing against in terms of after the national title.
So in the top 9, we do have 4 17s and 5 18s. as we see them come around again. And we'll update that order. So it doesn't look like it's changed too much. One little difference between Blanche and also Pert. They've just switched places, but they're all still within that lead bunch of now 6 athletes.
And that's where it gets a little tricky when, and they wouldn't have a lot of experience at this, you wouldn't think, passing people on the track. When you start to lap people and you're still in that tight little bunch, you have to be really aware if you are on the inside railing or you're stuck in the pack that the passing person is coming up, because as we saw then, Hannigan had to make sure that she still had a clear gap to get around without taking out the athletes behind her.
Because it's not like it hasn't happened when leaders have been trying to move through traffic and got themselves into a bit of a sticky situation.
I mean, we could see last night with Dane Bird-Smith, you could actually, it's harsh reality for some of his competitors, but it just shows us how great Dane Bird-Smith is at the race walk, because we're on the athletics track 400 metres around. They're usually used to walking in major competition outside of the stadium, but when you're on the track, you can actually see how much better Dane is, because he lapped everybody. And obviously what we don't want to see is any athlete being targeted by the officials in this event and finding themselves up in that pit lane.
What would you do for a minute in a pit lane?
Oh, if I was I would be sitting down. I mean,
look, guys, I'm going to just take my minute. I'm going to sit down here. I'll see you guys in a bit.
And then I may ask for an extra minute.
As we see the leaders come down to receive the 7 laps to go. So it's still that same order, but as we see, there's a split in the top 3 and then the next 3. So it looks like Hannigan, Novanets, and also Pert are the top 3. And then we go back to Blanche, Bolton, and also Sandry.
And you can see that they just walked past the high jump mats, and we have the women's under 17 high jumpers warming up, which will show you some of their footage when the competition gets underway a little bit later. I think it starts at 9:30. That's where it gets difficult when you put on events like the 3K walk on the track. It's so spread out there. So the high jumpers are just in their warm-up at the moment, but you can see that a lot of their run-ups are on the actual 400-metre track, and so they're having to dodge the traffic, wait their turn in terms of warm-ups with the other girls in the high jump, but then also make sure that they don't take out any of the athletes on the circular track competing in the race walk. So it's one of those events when you do have high jump and walks going on at the same time, it gets a little bit tricky and messy over there. The officials are very busy this morning already.
Oh, they certainly are. And the hardest one is always with the 400 hurdles, because you've also got the hurdles in the way. And you have to allow the hurdlers to have a run over the first hurdle. So you can't avoid them from running past the high jumpers.
So this is something that you know, as an athlete while you're competing, you don't think about. But if you're a meet organiser, is that something that you look at in terms of where you place the 400-metre hurdles and the other events that are around it at the time?
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of different clashes like that you do want to try and avoid. A similar one is with the pole vault. Sometimes you don't want a javelin going at the same time because the pole vault runs across the jav runway, so you're restricted to only one pit after that.
Yep.
So if the wind's going certain ways, it really does restrict you a lot. And like, there's a whole bunch of them. And that is one, I guess it's more of one of the minor ones that isn't considered too often, having a 400 hurdle and a high jump at the same time.
Yep.
Because typically you'll see field and track can sort of run independently of each other. But definitely one to be mindful of, because especially in a situation like this when you've got a big high jump field, plus you've got athletes wanting to go around. But in terms of avoiding in a circular event with a high jump, it's almost impossible. So you're always going to have some sort of event going on.
At the same time.
At the same time that needs to utilise that bend.
On the world stage, there was at a lot of the tracks in Europe, the long jump's actually on the infield. And that makes it very tricky because obviously we've seen in the past there's been some issues when you've got a javelin going on at the same time as a long jump. Because some of those implement events can be quite dangerous. You know, you have to make sure that especially when you're dealing with juniors who may not have the spatial awareness yet of the other events that are going on. So it's amazing when you do leave the competitive side of the athletics track and step outside it and look in at what goes into organising an athletics meet.
Certainly does, and there's so many different safety factors that need to be considered as well, especially when there is a long jump in the infield. And a story that Fabrice Lapierre and Robbie Crowther once told me when we were at a comp in France. They were out there on the long jump, having a chat to each other, just standing, you know, a metre or so away from each other, having the conversation. Next thing you know, in the middle of them lands a hammer.
Oh my goodness.
And the steel handle of the hammer, like, sort of whipped one of them as it landed. Obviously not injured or hurt out of it or anything like that.
Wow.
But how close is that?
I have a story that's similar
half
to
a metre
that
either way.
as a runner.
Half a metre either way, and then you're in some serious strife.
As we see Novinets and Hannigan still having a great walk. They've broken free of the pack and they're definitely, well, they're in the top two positions, but they're actually in the different pools. We've got Hannigan in the under 18 and Novinets in the under 17. So they both look like they're clear for the gold medal, but I'm tipping there's bragging rights on the line here in terms of who crosses that line first. Now, on that story that you just mentioned, I went to Japan to run an 800 metres once. And we coming around the second lap, so I was already really tired. And we got to the hammer cage, and I watched it, and I don't know why I was watching the hammer. Usually I would not have any awareness of what was going on in the field events while I was racing. But the hammer came up and out of the cage, and I heard the crowd, like, they really sort of, like, there was a big of the whole stadium. And it came and it landed 2 metres, like 3 metres in front of us on the track. And I went around it, and luckily the whole field, like, we all just went around it and went out into lane 2 and then came back in. But we were very lucky that it was just not that split second earlier because it actually landed on the track.
Extremely, extremely lucky. Obviously here in Australia, we have pretty stringent standards around our cages and how they work, and obviously they have to have the gates and the ability to open, close, and they have to be certain heights, all that sort of stuff, because the last thing we want here is any sort of risk or injury like that. So you'd be shocked if it happened here in Australia. But when you go overseas, sometimes the rules are a little bit different. You know, they're not so...
They're a little bit more blasé.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. Don't worry about it.
Like being in a call room in Athens. The race before you's already been run and you're still sitting in the call room.
As we see, one of the two leaders just received one of the yellow paddles there. So it was either Novinets or Hannigan. Obviously, they're walking right next to each other. So from us, we can't tell who it is, but the judge would have called out their number to make sure that they knew.
Well, and that's an interesting thing with race walk. That's where tactics can come into it. What do you then do? Because you don't want to be going into those latter stages of the race like we're coming into with 2 strikes against your name. So you want to be cautious then for another couple of laps before you do then try to push the pace. It would change your tactics out there. And on the flip side, if you're the other athlete that's walking next to that athlete that gets the paddle, that might be a really good chance to push the pace to see if you can then either break them a little bit or get them to get out of their comfort zone and maybe get another paddle. I don't actually know how the race walkers think while they're out there, but I'd be inclined to think that the goal is to cross the line first, so you'd be using every tactic that you could.
Yeah, why not?
Yep.
Why not? I see you there.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see what I could do. Just put a little spurt in. Oh, no.
Yep.
Put a little spurt in.
You got a paddle. And the other thing is...
I'd throw it out there too. Guess what? You just got
Yeah, I know. That's what I was going to say. As
Guess
a
what?
sprinter type,
I didn't get a paddle.
do they actually start speaking? Because, I mean...
Imagine the trash talk out there on the walk.
Well, I mean...
if Dane actually came and saw us, we'd probably be able to ask him.
Well, because they look so supportive out there, the walkers. They're
do.
a great bunch. That's why sprinters aren't allowed to run laps together because it'd get really messy. Because, I mean, you can't trash talk in a 400 during the race. But, I mean, I've done it in an 800 before. It's actually really funny. But it's hard to do it in an 800 because most of the way you can hardly breathe. But you obviously, when you're doing some of these aerobic events where you do take it a little bit easier, obviously it's not easy because it's tough, but you're not going at that flat out pace, especially early in the race. You can maybe get a few words out. So, but the girls at the front actually look like they're working together, to be honest. They may not be.
So they probably know each other fairly well.
Yep. But, I mean, for company, they both know that they would have come into this race that they're not fighting against each other for a title, but they could work together to make sure that they, one, get a time that they're after, or two, get a really good race from each other. So they probably would be working together, I would think. And then come the latter stages of the races, it'll be anyone's game.
Yeah. Now, we've seen another little bit of a gap developing between Sandri and also Bolton. So they are fighting it out at the moment for second and third in the 18s. And Sandri's just put a little bit of a gap on Bolton now. So as they continue to go around, we're trying to keep a track of them, but they're all over the place at the moment. So we do have the top 5 or 6 places that we're fairly certain of, but after that, it gets a little difficult.
Well, see, this is the problem when that's why they have so many judges out there counting laps, because there are athletes just spread across the track now. You can look at cadence and see who's moving quicker, obviously, and then you tend to get the athletes who are in front. But other than that, looking at the track right now, it's pretty tough. We obviously know who the leaders are because, to be honest, you can look down at them and they are the superior athletes on the track at the moment, superior walkers out there. They are doing a fantastic job. And they're coming down with 2 laps to go. It's a great battle between the two girls. They're doing fantastic in terms of pushing each other. I reckon that Hannigan's probably looked like the one who's been wanting to push the pace a little bit more throughout this race. Yeah,
she's definitely led off the front for the majority of the race, with Novinets just sort of sitting on the shoulder, just working the pace of Hannigan.
Interesting too, because Novinets could just sit in. It's one of those things where she could just sit right in behind, but she is going wider in lane 1.
Just wants to walk that extra 7 metres, wants to get her money's worth. So every lap, hey, I'm going to walk an extra 7 metres. I don't care.
I reckon that's exactly what she's doing.
I paid my entry fee and I will get my money's worth.
Some other good field events on at the moment. We'll try and get some updates for you. You can see in the background there, the triple jump is underway. It's the men's under 17 triple jump final. We have some talented junior jumpers coming through the ranks at the moment, Ben.
We do. Honestly, I think Australian track and field is in good hands. From what we've seen this week, it's in good hands going forward. Really
good hands, and it's just about then nurturing and managing that talent as they transition through what is often a tough time in athletics, that 19 to 22 age group where you go from junior times to qualify for Australian teams. And getting medals at national champs, to being out there with open season conditioned athletes and the qualifying times being a lot harder, or distances.
As we see our leaders just in the background there, they've entered the straight once more, where they'll come down to receive the bell here in this 5,000 metre walk. And it looks like Hannigan's starting to push the pace a little bit. She's opened up about a metre gap. Novinet's not off the shoulder at the moment. So good ring of the bell, solid. They definitely understood that they had 1 lap to go. And it is Hannigan off the front.
Oh, but it looks like Novinets is not letting her go without a fight. She looks like her cadence has just picked up a little bit here through this 350 to 300 metre mark to go.
So we do have someone in the penalty box, and it looks like it is number 15 in Sandri. So she was up there placing for medals. This is going to hurt Sandri a lot.
And she's not sitting down. She looks like she is desperate to get out there. Here she goes. She's out.
She was walking brilliantly, And here she is, she's off after that break. She's got some energy back, but she has got a lot of work to do to try and catch up, to get herself back into medal contention. So the first athlete this weekend to hit the penalty box, the pit lane. And does it hurt? Just taking time out like that out of your race, ruining your rhythm. It's something that is hard to come back by, but at the moment she is flying around this course. As we go back to the leaders, they've entered the straight. It's still Hannigan. Novinets is coming up to up. Even though they're different age groups, they want line honours, they want the bragging rights.
Oh.
So Hannigan and Novinets, side by side. Novinets starts to go past Hannigan, and it looks like she's going to take line honours. Novinets will take the win in the 17s. Hannigan, the win in the 18s. Gold medals to the two Queenslanders. Fantastic effort by both athletes.
And big hugs after the race. You can tell that they did go out there and they knew that they were both of similar standard. They made sure that they had a great race walk against each other. And I think we'll find that these two will push each other through the age group ranks. And that's probably one of the things that will help them hit that senior national level with that great competition skill under their belts.
So there's the winner of the 18s, Caitlin Hannigan. As we see another finisher come through, and that is Alana Pert. So this is the second of the 17s. She'll take the silver medal. So superb walking. As we see, Sandrick, she had that penalty, but wasn't enough to keep her down. She does take the silver medal in the 18s.
Well, it was an interesting race for that silver medal too, because she got the penalty, but then obviously came out really wanting to attack that silver medal. So she, in the end, the penalty didn't cost her the medal, a medal, because Hannigan was already away from her, but she then had to go back and chase Hannah Bolton down from the New South Wales, who then got the bronze.
And got there in the end. Now we've got another athlete in the penalty box who was up there chasing for medals, and that's Gabriella Hill. So that's unfortunate for Hill, because she was after the medal. She wanted it. So we'll have to see how she goes, but as we see more athletes come down to finish. So it looks like Emma Blanche, she will take that bronze medal.
Oh, it's hard if you get pulled into that penalty right near the end. It's one of those events where you think you're coming in to get a medal, and then all of a sudden your luck just changes. And that's the thing. You need the judges in the race walk to make sure that it's a fair event and the rules are abided by. But it's also one of those events where, you know, your joy can change to instant devastation. And you know what? We're at the track where we saw that happen with Jane Saville leading in the gold medal position heading into the Sydney Olympics, just the track across the road. And I don't think you've seen heartbreak like that in sport, when a whole stadium was getting ready to cheer and then just the red paddle came out. But, you know, the story of Jane Saville, she then kept going and she went on. So hopefully some of these athletes who will have disappointment in their career with walks and disqualifications and being in the penalty box, will see that athletes like who have been elite at the sport come back from those disappointments. And then Jane obviously went on then to do great things in Athens and at World Champs level.
Yeah, I watched that. I watched that moment live, and to see, and you knew it as soon as the walks judge started motioning towards Jane, you knew what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And at that moment, everything slowed down, and you wished so much that you were incorrect. You wished that that wasn't going to be the case. And I feel for that person, because that person who held out that red paddle was probably the most hated person in Australia at that point in time, because to be that close to the finish line, it's absolutely devastating. And the story goes, she actually did receive that third red earlier in the course. It wasn't until that point that they were able to notify her of it, which is even more heartbreaking.
I know. But in your head as an athlete, you know, you'd be working. I think at that point when you're so far up, you'd be working out what your celebration was. You'd be thinking the excitement side of it. It's one of those things. I just think there's certain athletes that'll, I mean, all athletes go through highs and lows, but there's athletes that will have gone through incredible lows like that. And I think it's a testament to the person that Jane Saville was and her family. Like Natalie Saville was another great race walker for Australia. The way that they went about their track and field career, even Jane within the athletics team during those games, she was able to come back and she was always there for the other athletes in the team. Just phenomenal athletes, and also the mental ability that they had was something that a lot of the race walkers today could still learn from.
Mm-hmm.
Seen a few of these girls coming across the line, and some of them have been in a bit of distress because obviously it's an event that is incredibly tough out there. 3 kilometre race walk, 5 kilometre race walk. I think it was Bridget Bell who just got some help from some of the officials to get off the track, and her mum was on the side straight away. It's always nice with the juniors, and this is a lovely track for it. The crowd can be right there, right at the finish, right around the back straight. You know, we've got the triple jump happening at the moment. The crowd's right there watching their athletes compete. And when you have the juniors out there, you obviously have a lot of supporting family members, and it's nice to be able to see that as the athletes cross the line when they go over to their family and their support network.
Yeah. So if we've got this right...
Yep. We don't have Lynchy. We could be a little bit wrong, but I think we're okay.
Novanets took the win in the under-17s and line honours, and then in the 18s. So we'll run through the 17s. So it was Novanets who took the gold, followed by Pert from Victoria. Alana Pert, she took the silver. And then Emma Blanche from New South Wales, the bronze. And then with the 18s, it was Hannigan taking the win, followed by Olivia Sandry from South Australia. And then we've got Hannah Bolton from New South Wales taking the bronze.
Yep.
So if all things correct, that will be your podium for the under-17s and the under-18s. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed. So the athletes that cross the line in those positions, the ones that you just read out, are the ones who get on that podium.
If we're wrong, it's Lynchy's fault.
It's always Lynchy's fault. And I'm changing headphones. To the lucky Lynchies.
Yeah.
We've still got a few more walkers out there on the track. They're into their last lap. Just coming up now. Alana Dingley.
A grand play. A grand for black.
As we see Brooke Martin come across the line then. And we're just got the one more athlete out there, Alana Dingley. She's not too far off her seed time coming in. She's doing a great job here just to make sure that she came in with a goal, and she's going to make sure she finishes, hopefully within a time close to that seed goal. 100 metres to go. Here comes Alana Dingley, the Victorian, to the applause from the crowd. Stops her watch. That's what I love about these distance events. You can tell they all come in with their own personal goals. Alana stopping her watch, she would have obviously been targeting a time. And Alana was part of the under-17 women's 5K metre race walk. The under-17 high jump. It's underway. It looks like the bar is at 150. It's going to start at 150. And it looks like the bar is now at 155 in the high jump. Some nice clearances by the girls, using the lower heights for them as a bit of a warm-up to get the feel of the track out there. Obviously, conditions make a difference. Different tracks make a difference. And nerves obviously need to be settled. So I think we'll see quite a lot of the girls coming in. Just seeing a few misses here at 155 by the under-17 girls. Sometimes it is just those nerves. It's a big occasion for these young ladies. It's their national title. It's a final. It's early in the morning on a Saturday, and they just need to really just focus and settle those nerves and do what they know their bodies have been trained to do. Clear that bar. On the screen, we can see the start for the men's 5K metre race walk. We've got the under 17 and under 18 men in there together. I'll go through the start list as soon as the gun goes and they're away. It's not as many in this as we saw before in the girls under 17 and under 18, so the start won't be staggered. It'll just be a clear start straight into the inside. 12 competitors. Go by hip numbers. From the inside, we've got in the under 17 5K, we've got Daniel Detroit from New Zealand, Angus Hay, Victoria, Heath Beveridge, also Victoria, Joel Kemp of New South Wales, William Robertson of Tasmania, Toby Wilkes from South Australia, and Nicola Mandic from Victoria rounds out the under 17 race work. And the under 18s, we have Jack McGinskin from New South Wales, Corey Dixon from Victoria, Hayden Blaskett from New South Wales, Nelson McCutcheon from Queensland, and Gwynlam Young from ACT. And even after 200 metres, you can see the pack's starting to form. There's a breakaway of 4, led by Jack McGinskin. Guinnesskin.
Let's go, McGinskin. Say it quickly, McGinskin.
I'm going to say McGuinnesskin.
Yeah, McGuinnesskin.
It's just a really hard name to say. Do you know what, Jack? I'll just call you Jack. McGuinnesskin's taken the lead, and he's obviously out to get a good time and push the pace of this field, which is great. We'll have a good, honest clip, and going with him is Gwynlam Young from ACT.
So it looks like we have one starter not out there, one of the athletes, and if I am correct, it's actually Toby Wilkes from South Australia. So that's a big out in the under 17 5K. Wilkes, the champion from an earlier walk in the week.
It actually looks like this is going to be a walk in 2 groups, and they're going to be in their age groups. I think that everyone in this lead pack is in the under 18.
They are, yep. So that pack featuring McGuinnesskin, Young, also Dixon and McCutcheon.
I just like saying Gwillam's name. I think that's a fantastic name. Gwillam, isn't it?
Yep.
Brilliant. Gwillam. Gwillam Young is sitting there in second, looking nice and comfortable. Actually, the whole 4 in the lead pack are looking comfortable. They've decided they're going to go out, leave the under 17s and have their own race and clear.
William's father in one of the people that runs one of the clubs down in the ACT,
really?
South Canberra, Tuggeranong. He's also heavily involved within the winter series down there as well, and also the walks community with Gwillam.
See, it comes off the tongue nicely. Gwillam, I like it. You look at those things, Ben, when you have kids, you think names, you always look at names of athletes and you think, oh, that's a good name. Like, I'm only having 2, so it's fine. I've got my name sorted. And the under 17s in the second pack, which we will have a look at. You can just see them coming up to that 200-metre mark now. We'll check for you soon who.
Life will be really easy if it remains like this and the gaps don't change.
we'll send word out to them.
Then we'll always know
Yep.
who's where. Then we don't need to be lap counters. We don't need to replace the 15 officials that we have down on the finish line. Looks like every official's got one athlete each.
But the hard thing with this is that if the 4 athletes don't make a break at some point, you're going to have a sprint finish, which is always heartbreaking in track and field when you're going to give medals out and there's 4 athletes that have had a great battle and only 3 medals.
4 does not go into...
No.
Oh,
No.
someone has received a paddle. So one of the yellow paddles. So that group led by McCutcheon, then Young, followed by McGinniskin and also Dixon. As we see, the leader in the 17s, Mandic, and also Robertson from Tasmania.
It's interesting because it is a championship race. It's almost like these lads have made sure they know who their main competition is and that's who they're targeting. They're not actually worried about the other age group as such. It's more just about trying to walk away. Get it? Walk away with that title.
Is that the first walks pun
That's
of
the
morning?
first. That's the first one. There will be plenty more.
We've got wall-to-wall walking here this morning. Back-to-back walks.
Be interesting to know. So we don't know up here who. It'd be really great if there was a big scoreboard that actually said who the athletes are that are getting the fouls. Like you can kind of make a guess, but you don't want to make the guess up here in case you're wrong.
Exactly.
Poor
So
person.
there is a whiteboard, as you can see down on the track side, there is a whiteboard down there so the athletes know who's been given what.
My eyesight's not that good.
And also we'd need X-ray vision to be able to see on the other side
Exactly.
of the board. And that, as of yet, is not possible.
No.
So
No.
we would just be guessing.
But you can tell when they do come out, sometimes the athlete who does get the warning or the board does actually then sometimes pull up just a little bit. So we've seen with a lot of the distance races during the week and now weekend, you see the athletes timing themselves, even though they've got the big scoreboards. But I guess they like to know their splits straight away, and they also like to know the splits that they're going at so they know that they can cope with the paces that they are targeting, especially towards the back end. If you go out too fast, sometimes it can get very ugly towards the end. But it's a very tight bunch of 4 in that men's under 18 race walk currently. And there's the whiteboard on the screen that you were talking about, Ben. Maybe we need to get an official to take photos of it and send us the photo up.
Well, just put it out to the camera crew. I said, I have a challenge for you. Get us footage of that whiteboard, and they have said challenge accepted. So we'll see what they're able to deliver.
Perfect, because it would be nice to know at this lead 4 who has got the warnings and marks against their name.
See, I don't know, as an athlete, it'd almost be hard not to have a conversation out there when there's 4 of you.
Do you know what? I'd be done. It goes longer than 2 minutes, so I'd have to talk. I don't think I've ever not spoken for 2 minutes.
And there's different athletes out there who some are very vocal in that regard. Even from the call room, when you walk into a call room, some athletes are very quiet and reserved. They'll sit in their seat. They won't say much. They won't interact with anyone. But others...
Well, and having said that, it kind of looks like the guys don't want to break away yet. You see that Young looked like he was going to go past and he wants the pace to be picked up, but McCutcheon is happy just controlling that pace at a tempo that all the lads can easily keep up with. But it almost looks like Young is just holding his time, waiting to be released.
Yeah. So it is those first 4 that we've mentioned in the 18s, and it is still Mandic and also Robertson holding down 1 and 2 in the 17s, with Detroit alone in that bronze medal position at the moment. He's got a big gap over Kemp from New South Wales. So there's the whiteboard there. Currently, we've got nothing on it.
Oh, perfect. So it was just a warning then for that lead pack. So someone in that lead pack must have just got a warning.
So no one has actually been given any marks against their name just yet.
Which is what you want to see.
Yeah. That's good to know. So no one is anywhere near being put in that.
Perfect. Because that, I mean, it was actually interesting in the girls' race earlier where you could see athletes who were fighting for those medals, two who were actually pulled at the last minute and put into that pit lane. Desperate to get out. It's obviously somewhere you don't want to be. But do you like what the RWF's done with that pit lane? I think it's better than dragging them off the track and not giving them a chance, don't
let
you?
them finish the race. But you obviously need a penalty for not abiding by the rules.
And McGinniskin has gone to the front. He obviously wasn't happy with the tempo and wants to see if he can break some of these athletes out. I think that's the danger when you do have 4 athletes. You do really need to at some point someone's going to have to make the move to try and break it up a little bit so you can sort the medals out earlier than the last lap.
What that pit lane does do, if it's not being used, it gives 5 officials trackside views of the walk. They don't have to do anything else.
Exactly.
They don't have to do anything unless someone comes into the pit lane. If no one comes in the pit lane, they don't do anything.
Sit there nice and calmly.
Just enjoy it out there.
Which,
imagine being on the pit lane, say if the walk moves to the track.
which
at
you
the
know, they're
Olympics,
talking about doing that.
And they
so
have pit lane. Wouldn't you want to be one of those officials?
I'd like a
not
TV
having to
in
really
there
do
too,
anything,
you know,
'cause-
so you could watch some of the other sports on while you're watching the athletics, and it'd be perfect.
And if someone does come into the pit lane, they scissor, paper, rock to see who takes that one.
Oh, yep. You guys get this one. I'm too busy watching the actual event.
Yeah, sorry guys. The Jap's on at the moment, and we've got Catherine Mitchell and Kelsey Lee Barber out there. And look, I'm good right here. How about you take this one? I'll get the next.
And it kind of looks like they're trying to make a bit of a breakaway here. And it unfortunately looks like McCutcheon is the one at the moment who is off the back of that 4. There's still only a couple of metres, so he still has a chance to come back on. But it looks like the pace is starting to pick up and the break may be about to stretch out.
Which is interesting because McCutcheon was dictating the pace pretty much the whole race. He was sitting off the front with Gwillem Young just sitting on his shoulder. And it's now Gwillem who's taken over this pace, and Dixon is sitting in behind him, followed by McGinniskin.
But Gwillem was always looking like that, wasn't he? He was looking like he just wanted it to go a little bit faster. As we see the official come out and show, oh, was it a warning or a card?
I don't know. It was a yellow paddle. So it was one of the yellow paddles with one of the squiggly lines on it, it seemed, which I think is knees, contact. One of the two. It's 50-50 chance of being correct. So Gwillem has received.
See. So I think the yellow is the warning, right? So it's not because the reds, you don't want to see red.
No, definitely don't want to see
Don't want to see red. So the yellow, I think, is a warning. But look, do you know what? This is really bad, but the walks change all the time. But I think the same judge can't show another yellow warning. So I think the warnings have to come from different.
No, they can only give one red card.
Each judge can only give one red
Yes.
card. Are you sure that they?
To each athlete.
But they can only give one yellow warning as well, can't they, to each athlete? Where is Dane?
Yeah, I blame Dane. I blame Dane. And Lynchy too. So it's still Gwillem Young off the front.
But I like that rule. I think that, there's enough judges around the track that, one judge can only give one athlete the warning and the red paddle. So but that makes their job. I mean, they need a notepad and pen as well out there because they need to remember who they've shown the yellows to and who they've shown the reds to make sure that they don't double up. And as we say that, McCutcheon has come around the outside and he's got himself back into the race. And that's the fascinating thing about distance races. Sometimes it looks like people are dropping off the back, but if you then don't capitalise on the break and the pace slows down again, the athlete can then regroup and latch themselves back on. Fascinating, the tactics in distance races. So McCutcheon's now put himself into the third position, and we still have Young out there pushing the pace and looking really nice out there. He's probably opened up a lead of about 7 metres or so.
So just having a cheeky little look down to that whiteboard. Someone has written something up on there. So number 2, Angus Hayes.
From Victoria in the under-17 race walk. Looks like he has got one warning against his name.
And I believe that's knees. The little...
The drawing. Symbol.
The symbol. Is that greater than?
Greater than. Less than. Yep.
Instead of the squiggly line. Squiggly line, I think, is loss of contact. And the other one is knees.
Well, this race is starting to get interesting now. Young is really looking like he is making his walk for home. He's looking nice out there, nice and relaxed. Contrasting technique of Corey Dixon. Looks like he's really working hard to make sure that he stays in those medal positions. He's currently in the silver position. And McCutcheon, he's hard to drop, isn't he? Still fighting there, and he's sitting in the bronze position, and that means that the unlucky one at the moment in the 4th position is McGuinnesskin. But we've still got enough time for this order to change. I think we're down to 4 laps to go. Again, the sun's hitting that lap scoring, but I think it's 4 to go. Look at the time, should tell us. I think coming up to 3.5 to go. Okay.
So I am just looking around the track at the moment, and we do have a couple of lovely volunteers out there collecting the red cards, and I do see 2 of those volunteers with 2 red cards. So once that gets back around to the chief, we may see a few more additions to the score, to the whiteboard.
Well, so the yellow paddle is, as we've said, is caution.
Yep.
The judge, I think each judge can only give 1, but the squiggle is for loss of contact.
Yep.
And the arrowhead is for a bent knee, like you said.
Look at us.
Yep,
We got
experts.
this. Who needs Dane?
Yeah, what does he know about race walk?
Exactly. What does he know that we don't? So
Yellow paddles from every judge on the course, but no more than 2, 1 for each offence. Okay, so the judge can then hand out the yellow to the athlete with a squiggle or with the arrowhead, but they can't give to any athlete 2 arrowheads, say. So they've got to...
And I think they may have to give a yellow before they can give a red, potentially. To warn the athlete, go, okay, hey, I've spotted you.
But what if someone just starts blatantly running? Surely that's just an automatic red.
No. Only the chief can give an automatic disqualification. So the other judges around the course can only give a red for that, 1 red, and obviously you need 3 reds to be removed and put in the pit lane. But the chief can pull you straight away. They have the power to do that. So, we've got some more reds coming in here.
Oh, dear.
So I think we're going to see a couple of little updates to that whiteboard. So we'll see.
So the yellow paddle, therefore, is, and I quite like this rule, the yellow paddle by the judges seemingly is there to assist the walker. So it then lets them know that they aren't doing the walk the way that the judges would want them to do, and so just to warn them as they're getting fatigued maybe, or they're getting a bit excited about the race, to make sure that they're following the rules, and they're just warning them and saying...
It's like a conversation between the
judge
and the walker. The judge just goes, holds it out and is basically saying, hey, Oh, here's the whiteboard.
Okay.
Also, number 2 does have 2 red cards. Number 5. So number 2 was Hay. 5 is Robertson, and 11 is McCutcheon. So Robertson and McCutcheon have 1 red each, with Hay on 2. So if Hay gets another one, he will find himself in pit lane.
Yep.
But that conversation, hold the paddle out, don't need to say anything. But in reality, that's saying, hey, I see you. I see what you're doing.
Yes.
I don't like what you're doing. You better stop what you're doing. Otherwise, I'm going to give you a red.
Yes, and so the judges out on the course then don't end up giving the reds, the chief judge does.
Imagine if you could go through life just holding out paddles and never having to speak to anyone because
And
everyone
just-
knew exactly
yep.
what it meant.
Just paddle your way through life.
Oh, number 2. So, hey, Angus Hay does have 3 reds, it seems. So, if we are correct with this, we
Yep.
will see him in pit lane, which will be unfortunate for Hay. And
Oh,
looks like the officials are coming out now. They're going to find him, and they're going to pull him in.
which is interesting to watch how they go about doing that. They obviously have to target the athlete that's been communicated to them and then deliver them the bad news.
Yes, Gwilym gives the ground announcer a bit of a wave, Maury Plant, as he mentions him. He's coming down to receive the bell lap. Obviously enjoying his time out there. McCutcheon in second, then followed by Dixon. And it's McGinniskin has dropped off the pace a little bit. So 350 metres left to walk. Not long to go now. There's a gap of about 5 metres over McCutcheon, who at one point looked like he was dropping off the back of that pack, but he's still up there. He sees himself in second position. He's got a little bit of ground to make up on Young.
But he looks like he's closing that gap just a little bit, don't you think? I mean, it could be deceptive, but I think it's enough of a gap, and he looks like he's been so comfortable he's just biding his time.
So Gwilym Young is no stranger to medals here at the Australian Championships. In past years, he's won plenty, and here he is in the box seat to take home the gold in the under-18 men's.
And hasn't he just
As
walked
we
beautifully?
see, Hay having to take his time in pit lane, so he'll stand in there. Start the clock, ladies and gentlemen.
Young's come into the front straight. He's home and hosed.
So he's moved out into lane 3 now. McCutcheon is fighting on behind him, but it looks like Young is going to be too quick here in this one, and he is going to take the win in the men's under-18 5,000 metre walk. Stand up and congratulate your champion, ACT. McCutcheon will take silver, followed by Dixon of Victoria will be third. So off goes Hay after looking at the stop. So we were wrong. It's not a minute, it's 30 seconds. So 30 seconds in the pit lane.
I think that's good, 30 seconds for the juniors.
Yeah, we're a little off. We're a little off. Minute, 30 seconds, same sort of thing in the end.
Well, it's still, I mean, it's still a relatively new event, having track, race walk with a pit lane. So it's, and like we've been saying before, track and field is evolving, and the IAAF, the International Federation, the international governing body, is making changes to make sure that our sport changes with the times and fits into the modern era of viewing. And things like Race Walk are one of those events where they're trying to keep it exciting and at the forefront of the public's mind so that they actually get interested in it and are entertained by the event as it goes on. And I think that, I mean, I quite like all these rules. Like, I love learning about what the lines mean, and I like the way that these days that the judges do warn the athletes and explain to them in terms of what they get, as we see Dutoit coming across the line.
And looks like Dutoit has walked himself to gold in the under-17 men's.
Well, Robertson, who was initially in the silver position, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Behind Mandic. But if we see,
So Mandic is now coming down the straight, the Victorian, and he's going to have to settle for third in this one. He was leading that under-17 race for a considerable distance, but it was Detroit. It took the gold from New Zealand, but being from New Zealand,
Probably went to the tunnel.
Robertson, the Tasmanian, will receive the gold.
Yep.
And Mandic will take the silver.
Well, Mandic,
Means it opens up one more spot for another athlete to try and snatch that bronze medal.
And Robertson obviously pushed the pace early, and it looked like Mandic at the back end just struggled a little bit with that early tempo that they set. But he comes away with a national silver medal for his bravery at the start. And Robertson was able to hold his form just a little bit better in those later stages. And even though he wasn't the first under 17 across the line, as you said, he's the one who will walk away again with that national title.
As we saw Hay after his 30 seconds in pit lane. And here comes Beveridge. So Beveridge from Victoria, he's going to walk away with a bronze medal here.
And he looks
Strong
good.
finish.
Looks
Yeah.
really good, nice and fresh. And he's obviously not fresh after walking 5K, but it was a great effort. Look, he gives us the thumbs up. He might be one to watch in terms of the future. Nice little technique and finished really strongly. Looked good. And I think in terms of seed times, Beveridge should be pretty happy with that. I mean, he came in with a seed time of 27 minutes. And the clock's just shown 25 minutes, so no wonder he had the thumbs up. He was pretty happy with his time too.
Yeah, and it is one of those times where he goes to the hundredths of a second. So you know that's not just a guessed time. It's not just, oh, I'm in this sort of shape.
Yeah.
It's, no, that's probably your PB. 27, 12, 87.
For the
can always
5K race walk.
Yeah, you can always tell with the seed times which ones are real and which
Yeah.
ones are made up.
Yeah. Well,
And when I
when
say made up, roundabouts.
yeah,
And
when you've got the .00 at the end, you're
Yeah.
like, yes, that's not a hand time.
Yeah, 24:50.00. Yeah, you probably just put a rough guess in there. Oh,
Yeah, that'll
around
do.
that sort of,
We'll round it down.
because the chances of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 athletes all happened to have a seed performance of 0-0
Yeah.
at the end.
Still, you know when you're filling out forms and you have to put times in? Like sometimes, like you just, yeah, that'll do.
And
Except
especially
if
for-
you're a 100-meter sprinter, then you really want to
Then
get
you
it
really
right.
have to get it right. But in an event like this where there's no heats, finals, or anything like that, it's just one straight race.
No
It
seeding.
doesn't really matter too much, to be
The
honest.
lane draw isn't vital.
No.
I mean, it's important, but it's
And
not
it's random.
vital.
Well, it should be random.
It should be random.
It's always random.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, no big deal. As we see, Hay coming down to finish. And he will conclude his under 17 and under 18 5,000 metre race walk. And it's official. Dane Burr-Smith has let us down.
Oh, he's got one more lap to go. I was going to say, he is
Would've
on
been
for
that
a
30.
huge personal best. Yep, so he's got a seed time of 29 minutes. So he's pretty much on target, especially when you take out the 30 seconds that he
Yeah.
was stuck in that penalty box.
So Dane has about a minute and a half to get himself here.
Oh, did you see him last night after the race, though? He was spent. I'm forgiving him.
No. No. So, hey, only 200 metres to walk. As we see Hay come into the straight. "100 metres left to walk here, so he's just going to miss that time that he came in with, 29.04. If he hadn't found himself in that pit lane, he would have definitely surpassed that time. So good solid walking here from Angus Hay, the Victorian. And he will conclude the under 17 and under 18 5,000 metre race walk.
What a wonderful effort by all the walkers out there this morning and the judges. It's amazing how many judges are needed for those race walks just to make sure that it is done correctly and fairly. I can tell you that women's high jump, the under 17 and under 18, well, the under 17 high jump is still out there. The bar is at 163 currently.
You reckon? Lynch is a true track fan. I have a feeling he could be sitting there next to the groom, just on a cheeky live stream.
Oh,
Just going.
he's 100% he's on the live stream.
So, how about Matt? Send us in a bit of a social.
I
know
think
you love a
should.
social. Of how you're enjoying the live stream.
And the bar's just been moved up in the under 17 girls high jump to 166. Oh, just not comfortable at that height, touching the bar with your hand with her hand on the way over, knocking it off, but
So, next event up, it is the under 17 women's 3,000 metre final. And we have 19 starters here. And once we get underway, we'll bring you that lineup. Looks like we now have another split start here, having such a big field. So we may have time, so with hip number 1, it'll be Shay Rooney from Queensland. In 2, will be Shane Hargraves from New South Wales. 3, Lily Tomlinson from New South Wales. 4, Caitlin Slobman from South Australia. 5 will be Lauren Ward from New South Wales. 6, Chloe Fenwick from Queensland. 7, Cameron Jade, New South Wales. 8, Hannah Williams, Victoria. 9, Chloe Lockhart, Queensland. 10, Catherine Lawson, Queensland. Hannah Cerezo from New South Wales. In 11, 12 will be Paige Livingston, New South Wales. 13, Georgia Gilroy from Queensland. 14, Alice Oakley-Kerr from Victoria. 15, Simone Milderet, Victoria. 16, Indy Seacombe from New South Wales. 17, Emily Witt from Queensland. 18, Ola Evans from Victoria. And rounding out the field, number 19, Charlotte Alexander from Queensland. So as we see the field run through the first 100 metres, they'll now cut in to lane 1, where they'll sort themselves out, find their positionings. As we see, it is Hargraves from New South Wales, straight out to the front.
well, I think Hargraves is the athlete to watch. She's a lovely mover. She knows this track well. She ran her personal best of 9:52.35 when she came third at the under-20 championships earlier this year. So, I mean, she is running beautifully. It'd be interesting to see what target time she has set and if she's actually gone out too fast, because she's really gapped the field already in this first lap and just looking like she's opening the stride up like it's a kick for home already.
Well, there's only two of them that have gone sub-10 in this field, and the other is Lauren Ward, and she's only just gone sub-10. So Hargraves definitely the form athlete in this field. The other one to probably watch out for is Hannah Cerezo, also from New South Wales. So this could potentially be a New South Wales trifecta again. We've seen it a couple of times this week. And already there's the three New South Wales off the front with Witt, the Queenslander, just trying to keep up with them at the moment. And as they come down the straight, we'll be able to give you an update on who that is.
Well, Lauren Ward's covering the moves of Hargraves. I think it's smart by Hargraves. When you come in with the fastest personal best on paper, you know that you want to make the race a decent clip, because you don't know who the athletes are that are going to have the good kick downs if it is a slow race, especially at this age. So I think it's smart what she's doing. It's obviously very gutsy. It's a hard way to run a 3K from the front the whole way. But what she is doing is she's making sure that it's the first few laps, which are notoriously slow in championship running, honest. And all the other athletes behind her should be thanking her, because they might come away with personal bests.
Yep, this definitely could be a fast race if this pace continues. So it is Hargraves off the front, followed by Ward. Then it's Indy Seacombe, another New South Wales athlete, and then Emily Witt from Queensland up there. And we'll try and bring you who that fifth athlete is in that pack. It is someone from New South Wales. So once we get that hip number,
I think it's Hannah.
it is Cerezo.
Cerezo.
So she's the other class athlete in this field, with a seed of 10:08.50. So at the moment, Seacombe and Witt, they're another two quality athletes. So they've come in with seed times of 10:23.10 and 10:16 flat, respectively. As we see the 1K split. So 3:14.
Nice.
The pace is up. If they can continue this, this is a 9:45 pace. So the pace is definitely on early.
But you can tell because Hargraves is just running beautifully. She's opened up her stride and she's got her, her arms are still low, like she's nice and relaxed through her shoulders. But just the way that she's opening up her strides and coming off the ground, she's just running beautifully, Ben. It's a lovely technique.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that 100%. She looks really comfortable out there. And one thing we have to start looking at now is that meet record of Melissa Duncan at 9:40.6.
Yeah.
So they're pretty much on pace to hit that. So if they can continue this, we may see a meet record. But as it goes on, sometimes with championship running, they get into that final K and it starts to become a little bit more tactical rather than that rhythm running that we're currently seeing. So Hargraves off the front, Ward just in behind her, followed by Seacombe and Witt. Cerezo starting to drop off a little bit now. She's left a little bit of a gap, about 10 metres on the rest of the field. So she'll want to bridge that pretty quickly. Otherwise, that's going to get harder and harder for her to make up as we see these four athletes starting to run away. And it's Rooney from Queensland who's leading the chase pack, the peloton. And she's got a train of athletes in behind her. At the moment, the focus is on this top four with three New South Wales and a Queenslander in Witt. So can Witt spoil the party for New South Wales here in this women's under 17 3,000 metres? So Hargraves and Ward, the two athletes to go sub-10. They're currently in that lead four. They're 1 and 2 at the moment, with Seacombe just sitting nicely in third, and Witt is letting the New South Wales athletes do all the work as she just positions herself on the rail off the back of that group, just trailing. So come into the straight again. Some great footage being taken. The crane cam operator, he's got himself in the middle of the field. He's gone Han Solo on us. And he's bringing us some expert footage. I do prefer him on the crane cam, but we'll take whatever he can give us. As we see Hargreaves pushing this pace a little bit more. Now Witt starts to drop a little bit. So they're putting a gap on the Queenslander. That's opening up to about 3 or 4 metres at the moment. So New South Wales, 1, 2, 3. Can they get the trifecta here in the under-17 women's 3,000 metres? Hargreaves doing all the work off the front. Seacombe now finds herself in second, and then Ward in third. As we come up to the 2K split, we'll see where we're at. So 6:42 around, so they dropped the pace a little bit, which means they're up just over that 10-minute pace. So they have slowed in that second kilometre, but they continue to pull away from the rest of the field in Witt, and also back to the rest of the group, which was being led by Rooney. As we see them come down the straight.
Now, the three ladies in the top 3 positions, they all ran in that under-17 New South Wales Championships, and it was Hargreaves who finished third and was the leader of the trio in terms of finishing positions. I think Lauren Ward was just behind her, and Seacombe was just in 5th or 6th. So they've sorted themselves out in terms of probably form, but it's interesting. The two out the front, just, you know, you couldn't pick the winner because they both look just as fresh as each other. It's just one of those things where the Hargreaves will have enough energy to kick home because she's done all the work out the front.
Yeah, Seacombe is running a brilliant race here. She's been super comfortable just sitting there on the rail in second, letting Hargreaves do all the work. So they're starting to drop Ward at the moment, the other sub-10 athlete. So this is a brilliant run by Seacombe.
Oh, it's huge because in that under-17 championship, she ran just over 10:20, a click over 10:20. So she is on target for a really fast time. But, you know, when you do take athletes out of their comfort zone at championships, you know, they get sucked into that early pace. Usually at this point in the race, they start to look fatigued, but she doesn't look fatigued at all. She's hitting the ground nicely, coming off it well, and still looking quite comfortable, just tucking in there nicely behind Hargreaves. But Hargreaves does look smooth and fluent, but I think she'd be a little shocked that she hasn't been able to burn off Seacombe as of yet.
Yeah, so the question that needs to be answered is how much has this taken out of Hargreaves, dictating the pace the whole time as they come down to receive the bell. Only 400 metres to go here in this under-17 women's 3,000 metres. It's Hargreaves. She starts to pile on the pressure now. It'll be up to Seacombe to respond. As they go around with 350 to go, they've dropped Ward, so Ward's going to have to fight on for that bronze medal. She'll have 2 Queenslanders trying to come at her, but it is Hargreaves. As she goes down the back straight, she's opened up a gap of 1 metre or 2.
Wow.
Here comes Seacombe. Seacombe responds. She goes back up to the shoulder of Hargreaves, and she goes straight past her. What has Hargreaves got in the final 200 metres? It doesn't look like much at the moment because Seacombe is piling on the pressure here. She's moving away from Hargreaves. Hargreaves did all the work through this race, but Seacombe said, see you later. I want this gold medal, and I'm going to take it from you. As she comes into the straight with 100 metres to go, she'll look up and see the finish line. What a famous victory here by Seacombe. She bided her time, she waited, and here she is running away from Hargreaves and the rest of the field. And she is going to take the gold medal here in the under-17 women's 3,000 metres, 9:57.78. So she goes sub-10, smashes that seed time. Hargreaves comes across the line for the silver medal. And it looks like Rooney's flashing home for the bronze. She's taken Ward, and the Queenslander will find herself up on that podium with a brilliant run. So she has also smashed her seed time. These women are out there. They have given everything. They are spent on the finish line. But what a race.
Oh, my goodness. I'm so impressed by every single one of those young girls out there today. They really put their heart and soul into that race. You know, Hargreaves and Ward were the early leaders. And they paid the price of that tempo. You know, they set the target of, you know, a 9:40 something race, and at the back end they just weren't able to finish it off at that tempo that they'd set up. But they're only kids, so you don't expect them to be able to do that at this age. But what you can see from that is that Hargraves is incredibly gutsy. So she should be so impressed with her silver medal. We are up here. We think it was fantastic. She's a beautiful runner. But Seacombe, geez, isn't she a championship performer? She really, really grinded her way and just sat in there through those early stages of the race when they were pushing the pace. And she ran that last 200 metres. I mean, coming into that last lap, you could see that Hargraves looked like she was just going to go away with it. But Seacombe was so hard to drop. She just kept coming back. And when she kicked down that back straight, she went straight past and came home like it was a 200-metre sprint. And at the back end, when she's run her first sub-10-metre 3K race, she looked fantastic, a talent for the future, definitely. But that whole age group, like there was a lot of talent in that race, and there was some beautiful techniques, which is something that you like to look at in that younger age group.
Oh, definitely. And the big thing for me on this is Rooney. So coming into the Bell lap,
Yep.
she probably had 30 or 40 metres to gain on Ward, and you would have thought Ward, the way she was running the rest of those laps, would hold on. But Rooney has run down that 30 or 40 metres and then put another 20 or 30 into Ward by the finish line. So what a finishing 400 from Rooney to be able to get herself up there onto the podium.
Which is probably because of that early pace that Ward helped push with Hargraves. You can see Hargraves just getting helped off the track. She was so incredibly gutsy in that race. I just, you know, for me, I hope she sees that silver as a real win, because she was very impressive in that race, the way that she went from the gun and made sure that was an honest race. And we, as spectators, were able to see girls running fast times and just a classy field. And the results were amazing, but they were amazing because Hargrave was gutsy at that start bit to push the pace.
Yeah, full credit to Hargraves. And it's good to see that young athletes out there are brave and they're willing to take on these events, go out there, commit to it, commit to the pace, and really push it to make it a good, exciting race, trying to chase fast times. That, forget about the medals.
Yeah.
That in itself is just brilliant to see.
Just watching them race. Racing now is something that, you know, when you sit there and you've done all the work and you go out to a championship, it's the racing now that you're watching to see how they handle the pressure of a championship competition. And I thought every single person out there in that women's under 17 3K handled it beautifully and ran superbly. The thing with distance running with juniors, I think the thing that we don't see is what training they're doing. You want to make sure that they're not doing too much and that pretty much they race themselves into form, and they do a lot of that under distance training where they work on speed. There was some athletes there that definitely look like they had lovely techniques and they've done some speed training, which is definitely heartening for the future, because when your bodies are developing as young athletes, you don't want to be doing too much.
Yeah, no, I agree. Now, just off camera, you can see down the back, there are the athletes walking out for the next 3,000 metre event, but they're walking out in a straight line, one after another, Indian file, and next thing you know, officials have said, okay, you can do a run through. And one by one, they took off around the bend and made their... I liked it. I want to see it again. Can we all walk back and
do it again for Ben.
just so we can get it on camera next time. So maybe if it happens for the men in their event, we might have to see if we can capture that and get some footage. Cause
it's a big field, and that's why it looked impressive, isn't it? Because there's 24 athletes that have taking to the start line in this women's 3K race for under 18, and so it's a large amount. I'm guessing a lot of them haven't run in fields of this size before, so we're gonna hope that somebody in that pack is brave as well and will take it out fast, because that will help enable that nobody has any accidents in terms of slow paces and pack and staying on your feet. But they're going to do the staggered start for this field definitely, because it is a huge field.
certainly is, and looking down the list, there is one athlete that stands out, and that's Nikita Moore from Queensland. So she comes in with a seed of 9:32.33. A lot faster than the rest of the athletes. Next closest is Mackenzie Ormiston with a 9:48, and then Tiana Woodjup and Renee Lewis with low 9:50s. So we've seen Nikita Moore dominate women's distance running in this age group for the last couple of years now, and you know, through cross country and the track. So it'll be interesting to see what sort of form she's in at the moment out here in this 3K.
And it's tough when you are the favourite coming into an event, and especially because she has gone through the junior ranks and she's the one to watch. Other athletes will start to get used to the way that she races and try and target her as the one to beat. And so she's got to come out here and perform on the day, which is the day that you want to be peaked for and prepared for, with that target of I'm the favourite, catch me if you can.
I love it when a favourite goes out there and just dictates things.
Yeah.
And asks that question, hey guys, can
Yep.
you keep up with me?
Yep, and that's, you know what, that sometimes tells you a lot about an athlete and how their mindset is, and it's one of those things where you can't teach that necessarily. It's just something that you're born with, where you're just gutsy enough to go out from the gun and go, okay, yeah, I'm favourite, but I'm okay to be favourite. I'm going to dominate this race from the gun.
So we'll run through this lineup. It will be via hip number order. So Georgia Lavin from Victoria, we're hip number 1. Abby Kenny, Victoria 2. Layla Roundtree, the ACT 3. Rachel Jennings, Victoria 4. Tia Chitty, Western Australia in 5. Tiana Woodger from New South Wales in 6. Olivia Richardson, Victoria in 7. Renee Lewis, New South Wales 8. Charlotte Hoskins, Victoria in 9. Lucy Morville, South Australia in 10. Mackenzie Ormiston, Queensland 11. Carly Atkinson from Victoria with 12. Mia Hinchcliffe, New South Wales 13. Isabel Collins, Victoria 14. Nikita Moore, Queensland 15. Jessie Alexander from West Australia 16. Zoe Sibley from Victoria 17. Zoe Mellish from ACT 18. Ella Stiles, Victoria 19. Ebony Dodemaid from Victoria with 20. Rosie Ford, New South Wales, Fordham, sorry, with 21. Remy Gibbs, Victoria, 22. Elena Kudashiva, New South Wales, 23. And Zoe Manning from Queensland will have that hip number 24. So they're the 24 starters.
And no surprise, Nikita Moore has gone out to the front, and you can tell by how it's already strung out that she is pushing that tempo to a pace that most of the athletes in this field aren't comfortable with to go with. Renee Lewis from New South Wales has tucked herself in there and happy to go with this tempo, as is Rachel Jennings from Victoria and Harcourt.
Yeah, so they are the places at the moment. So looks like the top 8 we have, it is Moore, followed by Lewis, followed by Jennings, then Woodger, then it's Lavin, then Morville, then Chitty, and also Ormiston. So they're the top 8 on the track at the moment. And this field is really starting to string out now.
Oh, it's so strung out. Nikita Moore's doing a great job here to make sure that it's not a dangerous race with such a big field. And I think her and her coach would have discussed that. When you do have 24 in the field, it does often change the way you have to approach the tactics of those early laps, because you don't want to have, if you are clearly the favourite, you don't want to have that mishap where, you know, you have a Zola Butt incident where you just lose your legs and find yourself flat on the track, which can happen in rough races. So it's not, I know it's not meant to be a contact sport, but distance running can be quite rough out there. So I like that Nikita's gone out there. She's got the confidence to do that. But it's also really good for her to have the athletes going with her to push her. And at the 1K split, we've got 3 minutes 10, which, you know, I think she's comfortable off it. She looks quite comfortable. She hasn't pushed it to a point where it's, you know, it's going to affect her in the back end. You can see she's got that nice, compact, really strong in the core technique. She's not wasting any energy with that running technique, which is exactly what you want to do in the early stages of a distance race. And I think that she just looks like, even though she's out the front doing all the work, she looks like she's just biding her time to step it up another gear.
Yeah, I think so. So she is on target to hit that 9:32 that she's come in with.
But the thing is, the others can't do that. So what she's doing is she's taking the others out into a point that they've never been in, and she's going to hope that, you know what, they're actually not capable of running the times that she can. So she's going to basically blow them up by making them come with her at a pace that's uncomfortable to them. And the thing that they'll find out is these athletes, I think it's brilliant that they're going with Nikita, because they're targeting the fact that, you know, there's a race to be won. yes, Nikita is the athlete that everyone's watching, but we don't want to say that she's going to win it. We're going to target her and see if we can win it. And maybe by putting themselves out there and putting themselves into a little bit of discomfort, they might find that they're capable of more than they thought they were.
Yeah, and in the previous race, we saw Hargraves do this, work off the front, dictate that pace, but then obviously Seacombe too strong in the end. But the difference here is that the gap between Hargraves and the rest of the field in terms of times was much smaller than what we see here with Nikita Moore and the rest of the field. So there is a greater gap between the quality and speed of the athlete. So even though she's out here doing all of this work, the other athletes are probably going to have to work a little bit harder to try and keep up. And that, in that in itself, sort of counteracts for Nikita sitting off the front.
Well, and so having said that, we've basically got a pack of 3 out there in the front now. Renee Lewis went with that early pace, but she's already struggling, and you're only halfway through the race. So it's going to be a tough last half of the 3K for Renee Lewis, but I'm still impressed with the way that she tried to go with the pace. It says a lot about an athlete, and now she's just got to hold her form and then try and regroup through the middle stages and then come back. But it's definitely a race in 3, and as we say that, it kind of looks like Rachel Jennings is maybe starting to struggle a little bit, and hopefully if the tempo slows, she might be able to get back on. But if they keep pushing this pace, they may find that Nikita Moore may find that she's dropped the race down to a race of 2 between her and Wooja.
So Wooja, New South Wales athlete, just sitting off the back at the moment of Nikita Moore. Doing a good job at just holding that pace at the moment, as we see the rest of the field starting to come across the line now. So Nikita is looking good, but Wooja, she's holding on there, and she is another one of the athletes that has gone sub 10 in this field. So she's some 20 seconds in seed performance off Moore, but she is holding her own here in this women's under 18 3,000 meters, and they're starting to drop Jennings now. That gap is getting larger and larger.
And at the 3K, it was 6 minutes 28. So they've slowed it down a little bit. Probably slowed it down 8 seconds. So they've probably thrown in that middle K where they went out fast, they've settled it down, and then they're just going to look to pick it back up, hopefully. That's the plan, at least.
So it'll be interesting to see what Moore does here. She'll sense Wooja off the back.
To be honest, Ben, it almost looks like what Nikita has done is she's burnt off as many as she can. She may be surprised that Wooja's still with her, but she knows that Wooja's there, so she's probably had that breather just for a little bit. It looked like it was just in the last lap before, just so that she could regroup and go again, which is exactly what it looks like she's doing.
And as you say that, Wooja now starting to drop off significantly. So in the space of 100 meters, she's probably lost about 10.
Yeah.
So Moore really piling on the pressure now, and she wants to wrap this race up nice and early, and she's done it with just over 2Ks into it. So still about 600 to run
And
in this event.
That's the danger with the athletes who have put themselves in a dangerous zone of not being, it's an unknown zone. They don't know how they're going to finish off the pace that's faster than what their personal best is. And so now they have to just hold their form, because both the silver medalist and the current bronze medalist positions are in no man's land. They're running around on their own. So they basically have to be able to regroup, hold their form, let the gold medal go, and then try and hold on to that medal position that they've earned.
And the big one is that Jennings dropped earlier, where Wooja held on to the pace that Nikita Moore was holding. So has that taken a little bit out of Wooja, that may have Jennings, say, hey, maybe I can work my way up and snatch that silver from you, but
they both look tired, don't they?
They do.
But it's a credit to them. It's a credit that they were gutsy enough to try and go with Nikita for as long as they could. But it's all about Nikita Moore as she hits the back straight with just under 300 metres to go. She's opened that lovely stride of hers out. She's starting to use her arms a little bit more. She's really relaxed through the shoulders, but she's home and hosed.
She certainly is. So the Queenslander, Nikita Moore, she'll have 200 metres to run. The clock just ticks over that 9 minutes as she makes her way around the bottom bend for the final time in this event. She won't be quicker than that seed performance of 9:32.33, but it doesn't matter because she's going to come into the straight and she will work her way to the finish line where she will take home the title in the under-18 women's 3,000 metre. So brilliant running by Nikita Moore. She dictated this pace from start to finish, and here she is. She's run away from the rest of the field to take a win by over 80 metres. 9:42.23 unofficially, as we see Tiana Woodger from New South Wales will claim that silver medal, and Jennings from Victoria will settle for the bronze. So it was a war of attrition trying to hold on to Moore's pace, and Woodger and Jennings, the two athletes to hold that the best. Jennings has had some trouble down the home straight. So it looks like Lewis is going to take home that bronze.
No, Jennings just crossed.
No, Jennings is down here.
Lewis.
She's trying to get up. She's
Sorry,
still
Lewis.
70 to go.
But Renee Lewis crossed the line. So Lewis is in third.
I think Lewis is in third.
Yep. But, it's heartbreaking to see what's happening to Jennings down the front straight. She's being as brave as she can to make sure that she's up on her feet, and she's trying to finish this race, and it's heartbreaking because she was one of the gutsy athletes who went with the early pace and has been fantastic, but she's absolutely spent and she's just put too much effort into those early paces. And we just want to see her get across the line and get to medical help. She's pushing the medical staff away because she knows that as soon as they actually do go and help her, then she'll be disqualified. They can do what they're doing, obviously. She just needs to cross that line, and then we want her to get medical treatment straight away. What a great effort. The crowd's applauding her because they know that she's put in so much effort.
So it's been, a contentious issue,
Yep.
especially recently with the Commonwealth Games, and as we saw in the marathon with the runner.
Where you can get help. The rules changed a little bit. You can get help, and they should have helped him when he hit the
Yeah,
deck.
so the medical delegate is someone that has the power and the ability to pull someone off the track if they believe it could harm the athlete if they do continue. But also, they do have the ability to go out there and assist the athlete and the athlete not be disqualified. As long as they don't help the athlete to continue forward.
Exactly.
That's the only thing they can't do. But they can actually treat the athlete as long as the athlete doesn't go anywhere. And then the athlete can get up and continue on.
Yep. Which in this case, because Jennings was moving forward, the medical staff were doing the right thing and she was pushing them away. But, hopefully Jennings gets some water on board because it's starting to warm up out there. And it was just the way that she targeted those fast early laps. She's a gutsy athlete. She just put herself into a point that she hadn't been in before and was unfortunately so close to winning that bronze medal, but just couldn't hold on. Her body just gave way. So hopefully she is okay. She was on her feet and she left the stadium. She wasn't as bad as what Callum Hawkins was, the Scottish athlete that you were talking about in the marathon for the Gold Coast, where we saw those horribly distressing scenes where he was just beside himself on the track, on the marathon course when he was so close to home. But that's a part of athletics. You have to be able to learn how to distribute your energy correctly for what your capabilities are and for what the conditions are. And so Jennings would have learnt that even though she's incredibly gutsy, she perhaps pushed it a little bit too hard in those early laps. But she'll get better, and I don't think she's lost any fans today by the way she went about her race. And let's just hope that she gets the medical treatment, she's okay. But that's not to take anything away from Nikita Moore, who just had a beautiful race and ran fantastic in that under-18 women's 3K to take the national title. From Woodger, who was in second. And we think it was Renee Lewis who crossed the line in third. And we can see on the start line there, we now have the men's 3,000 metre run for under 17. We'll wait till they get underway till we go through the start list. Another staggered start. It's a big field. "17 athletes out there on the start line. From the inside, we've got Brandon Ford of WA, Charles Sprott, Queensland, Michael Hall of Queensland, Douglas Buckeridge of Victoria, Cameron Quirk, WA, Matthew Bennett, Queensland, Lachlan Townsend, New South Wales, Adam Goddard, South Australia, Luca De Conza from Victoria, Toby Knox-Little of WA, Finn Macmillan, New South Wales, Jaron Hobbs, Victoria, Patrick Cantland, New South Wales, Daniel Kelly, New South Wales, Samuel Rockcliffe, also New South Wales, Reese Hadfield, Victoria, and Mac Anderson of Victoria. Again, it looks like the athletes are smart enough to realise in huge fields that you need someone to take that tempo out to make sure that it's a race where all the athletes stay on their feet and it's not too rough with argy-bargy in that first bit. So looks like Brandon Ford is the athlete out there in the lead from WA, pushing the pace. Ford from Goddard of South Australia. And then the two New South Wales boys of Daniel Kelly and Samuel Rockcliffe. Ford with the wide arm style, controlling the pace. Forward lean. It's always a better way to run distances when you see an athlete in those early stages. If you've got that forward lean, it's much easier than if you've got that upright back stance. It's just, you always, with distance running, you want to see those first laps done as effortlessly as possible. And often the forward lean, even though it's an extreme forward lean by Ford, it's one of those things where it often aids the technique in terms of focusing on that relaxed style in those early laps.
Yeah, I guess distance is just about that rhythm running.
Yeah, completely.
You know, finding that zone where you're just happy to just sort of cruise along. It's when the pace changes so often that it sort of hurts the athletes, and that's when people can find themselves in trouble.
Well, and that's kind of what's happened in this race. Ford got himself out there and made sure it was fast with that staggered start and got himself to the front where you want to be in such a big field. But as we hit the 1K at 2:55, but he slowed it down a little bit. So the tempo's dropped, so everybody pretty much is still in with a chance in this race. So he's just controlling it from the front. But even at this tempo, he's still out there on his own. No one else wanting to come to his shoulder. They're just letting him do all the work. It's not too windy out there, so you shouldn't think that it's one of those races where the coaches would be saying to them, whatever you do, don't hit the lead, just tuck yourself in. But it is a distance race where athletes do often like to have some part of it where they're not thinking about the tempo or the pace. They're just switching off and just tucking themselves in.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where sometimes when you are one of the fastest in the field, it's sort of the unwritten rule that you sort of got to go out there and dictate the pace and make sure it is sort of fast. And it does come in with the second fastest seed time at 8:31 flat. And the only athlete via seed time to go faster is Matthew Bennett from Queensland. And he is just sitting back casually, not too worried. He's happy to let Ford do the work at the moment as we run through the order.
Well, Bennett's way at the back. He's probably 4 from the back of that lead pack, which is a huge pack, and he's looking comfortable. But a lot of them at this tempo are looking pretty comfortable. So I think because it isn't super quick, they're just biding their time and waiting for the kick to happen. But unless you're supremely confident, like say a Mo Farah, who you know that your turn of pace is really good, you always want to make sure that you still have that ability to cover the moves from the front. And so if you get too far back, it is a danger. You can see the two WA boys there coming through the pack in the middle, and they were just having a chat to each other, almost like they were working their way through the pack together, which is what happens sometimes. You know, you get so used to racing against certain people, training partners, and you have race plans that are sometimes similar. So little bit of support out there. Never goes astray.
So the first three, still Ford off the front with Goddard and also Buckridge. And then after that, it looks like it's Anderson, the Victorian. And then after Anderson, it is Hall, then Rockcliffe, Sprott, and also DeConza. So they are the top 8 at the moment. And there's a gap starting to form in this group. There's 7 starting to move away from the rest of the field, and that gap has opened up to about 5 to 7 metres as we see the 2K split at 5:57. So they're still holding that pace.
Yeah, still sub 3-minute K pace, which is, it's an okay tempo for the guys. They'd be very comfortable at this tempo, though, the lead pack, with most of them with personal bests under 9 minutes.
So that K just over the 3 minutes, but on average, they're still under it.
Which is, is what we could see. You see Ford, he came out, he made sure he strung out the field early, but then he bunched it up in that middle bit, had a bit of a breather. But his race plan might not have been to get to the front, but nobody in this field has wanted to pass him.
No.
They've just left him out there. So he's basically the workhorse. And I think that's the best thing to do when you find yourself out in front. There's no need to then put the brakes on and slow your race tempo down just to make sure that you're not in front. Just then change your game plan and get your head around the fact that you're out in front. You can just run nice and freely and just relax it. It's a championship race. It's not about time. So just run nice and smoothly and just get ready for that back end where the challenge is going to come.
Yep. And we've seen many great athletes dictate races, lead from start to finish. So it's not like it can't be done. It's not like it's the position of death where if you go out there,
No.
you end up blowing up because you've done all the work. So
You just have to make sure in training that some of the reps that you do, you actually are the leader and you're targeting the times and hitting the times that you need to hit so that you've practiced it. But it's still really bunched up, Ben, and this is a race that's going to come down to the final kick. Who's willing to go when it counts? And is someone going to do the long run for home, or is it going to come to that final 150 kick?
So there's still 7 of them in the hunt for the medals as the South Australian in Goddard goes past Ford and also Buckridge. So it is Goddard from South Australia that makes his intentions known, and he lifts the pace as Buckridge tries to go after him, and Ford fights on. The West Australian, he's still sitting up there. He's going to have some work to do to stay up with Buckridge and also Goddard as Buckridge goes past Goddard, the South Australian. The Victorian, he's really piling on the pressure now. He's lifted the pace. The Victorian, he's opened the gap to about 10 metres. What a move here by Buckridge. He'll enter the straight with the lead. The South Australian is going to have to do some work, and he's got a challenge in just behind him, but Buckridge is still holding. He's starting to fade. Goddard is coming at him. Also the New South Wales athlete in Rockcliffe. But Buckridge is going to hold on. Goddard will be second. Rockcliffe will be third. Congratulations to the Victorian. He made his move with 300 to go. And he's taken home a brilliant victory here in the men's under 17, 3,000 metres. And Goddard gets himself up for second, and Rockcliffe flashes home for third.
What a cracker race. And the celebration by Douglas Buckridge basically showed us the pure emotion of the fact that, it was one of those races, Ben, you and I couldn't pick who the winner was going to be before the race. In the girls, we had some clear favourites where we turned our attention to, but in this race, we weren't sure what was going to happen. We didn't know how it was going to play out. Unfortunately, the earlier leader, Ford, wasn't able to hold on to get into that podium position, but he was very gutsy and he made the running. And Buckridge, when the pace and the change happened, he was right there at the bell, ready to go. He covered the move of Goddard, and then down the back straight when he hit the front, he clipped his ears back and he didn't look behind, did he? He was just gone. Beautiful running, Buckridge. Well done. Celebrate hard, son.
I do like the distance celebrations. They get into it, don't they?
I actually think our sprinters may need to step up.
Honestly, they do.
Yep.
Not enough. Not since the old great Josh Ross with his robot dance. Haven't seen any sort of celebrations like that in so long.
I actually think there's going to be some pure emotion that will come out of who wins our men's 100 tonight, because it is a race where we have genuine talent. We've spoken about it. A lot of people have spoken about our talent in the men's sprints at the moment. But I think even though the favourite is clearly going to be Rowan Browning with his 10:08 that he dropped the other day, and I think it's also the fact that he is the athlete who runs beautiful under pressure. He has that wonderful ability that you can't teach to relax under pressure in sprinting. So he'd be the one that you'd be looking at. But, I mean, you saw Trey come out and run his heat and look fantastic. You know, he's going to get one of his, amazing starts, and then Rowan has to make sure that he stays calm through that early part and can use his middle phase, which is so great in his back end of the 100. But then there's also Eddie Nikita, and you've got Jake Doran there, and Jack Hale has been the athlete who's been winning most of the season, except for when Rowan came out and ran his first 100 and turned the tables.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You'd probably say Hale's the most consistent.
Hale's most consistent.
We haven't seen enough running from Rowan to understand where he's at with that.
Well, you just know he's darn fast.
Yeah, we just know he can run super fast.
Yeah.
But Hale has been so consistent over the whole season, running those 10-1s, 10-2s, and you can't discount any of them. And then you look at the ones coming up from there in Doran and Nikita and honestly, I think we're going to see some surprises tonight.
Well, you always do, and that's the beauty of championships. You always come in with your notion of who's going to get first, second, third, and you all have your little thoughts of the form guide leading into championships. But that's why it's the major for the year. And for a lot of athletes, the Australian titles is their Olympic Games. It's what they're focusing on. It's their end goal. So you just don't know what's going to happen. You can kind of guess from the lead-in form, but geez, the pressure cooker of a national title and the chance to go and represent your country at a World Championships is on the line.
And I'm going to put it out there. I'm going to make a prediction for later on this evening. So if you look at the form guide in terms of personal best, all that sort of stuff, how fast people can go, you would say Browning, Trey and Hale should make up the medals when you look at that. Obviously, they're the ones that have gone sub 10-2.
But there's the unknown of Trey's body getting through the rounds. So it's... But
he looked that good in the heat.
He did look
that good. Any issues that Trey's had, I'm putting them aside because I think he's in shape.
Yeah, no, he did look good.
And I don't think he's someone that would come here unless he knew he could win.
And didn't he just say that?
Yeah.
In his post-race interview, even when you tried to give him the out, he didn't accept it. He said, I've come here to win.
Exactly.
I loved it.
But I don't know. I'm just putting this out there. I have a feeling, and I'm not going to say who, but someone from the rest of the field is going to upset those three and sneak a medal in. So one of them's going to miss out. Well, that's my prediction.
Nikita looked good.
He looked brilliant.
Didn't he? I mean, he looked really good.
He looked brilliant. Even Doran had time to look over his shoulder.
Yeah, Doran looked good.
So that's my prediction for it.
Do you? I mean...
One of those top three, I reckon, may miss a medal.
Well, they're going to have to...
And don't know who's going to take it, but that's... So...
Well, the thing is, I think...
The bookies wouldn't give me good odds on
that.
Because I'm being very vague about it all, but still.
Well, I'll prod you more tonight on this one because I think that you're going to have to lay down the gauntlet and say who.
All right, I'll put my prediction out who after the semi.
Okay, perfect. But I think...
Once we know who's in the final.
Well, I think that Trey's a big meat performer. You've watched him come through the juniors with a lot of pressure in his races because these guys have raced against each other on numerous occasions through age groups. So you can't really write him out just because it's a championship. You're going to say he's going to run better. Rowan Browning, like we said, runs beautifully under pressure, and he also showed that he is fantastic and not daunted by elite athletes with better personal bests than him. He lifts to the occasion and runs even better. So I think he has to be in there. And Jack, I think this season has matured not only as a sprinter, but he has shown that he is an athlete that belongs in competition. If he's missed the start, he hasn't panicked. If he's got a good start and then he's found his middle's gone, he works on his back end. So I think Jack has shown that he is also now becoming a good conditioned senior athlete and able to put out times that show that he's consistently at that 10-2 and under. So I'm going to say they're going to be a 3 medalist and say that come final time because all three of them deal with pressure brilliantly.
Ooh.
That's what's going to happen. And I think it'll be Rowan. Oh, all right. The second place bit, I don't think you can go past Rowan just from the way he ran beautifully in Queensland. I think second's going to be a tough one to pick because if you're relying on Jack getting a good start, because Trey will always get a good start, and then coming through the back end. But I'm going to say because of Trey not having enough races yet, and he's then going to throw 3 races in the space of 24 hours, that I'll go Jack, then Trey.
Cool. So you put your prediction out there.
I'm early. I'm not afraid of watching semis. I'm going to go early. But then, you know what? What I'm looking forward to seeing is hopefully that those 3 run their 10, 20s and under, and they drag people like Jake Doran and Alex through to really fast times as well. So that we have our, how excited would you be? Just a little tailwind and 5 Aussie athletes under 10-2.
Ah, I'd love that.
Wouldn't that be brilliant?
So we're underway in this under-18 men's 3,000 metres, and as we do, we'll run through the hip number order. So from Queensland, Alex Davies, we're hip number 1, Liam Back from New Zealand 2, Rage Noor from the ACT in 3, Raman Naya from Victoria in 4, Harm Sharp from New South Wales 5, Kai Robinson, Queensland 6, Patrick Thigerson from Queensland in 7, Eli Baker, from Queensland in 8. Luke Hintz from New South Wales in 9. Darcy Hennessy from New South Wales 10. Joe Cross, South Australia with 11. Jaden Mills, the Queenslander, 12. Daniel D. Alberto, the Victorian, 13. Jude Thomas, the Queenslander with 14. Daniel Hungerford, New South Wales, 15. Dennis Allen from Queensland, we're hip 16. Dylan Alford from New South Wales, 17. Kieran Gorman, New South Wales, 18. And Sam Bunnage from Victoria is out there in hip number 19. And this is a much slower race. As you can see, the whole field is there in a big bunch.
Yep, Ferguson and Naya are the ones who are the fronts at the front, but you can tell that it's slow. Jude Thomas from Queensland came around very wide, and look how wide some of these athletes are, just trying to settle in and find their position without having to put in too much effort. Nobody really wants to lead. They're quite happy for it to be a sedate tempo in these early stages. I mean, even the Queenslanders that are at the front look like they're just discussing the fact that the tempo is slow and that they don't want it. And why not?
Exactly. So looks like Naya is dictating that pace at the moment. Then Thigerson, followed by Thomas, then Sharp, D'Alberto and Robinson. So they are the top 6 on the track at the moment. As you see, Thomas now over.
Thomas hasn't looked happy with the pace from the get-go. So he tried to come up wide on the back straight of the first lap and sort of say, come on, let's get this tempo going, which is one of those things, you know, he wanted the tempo to get going, but he wasn't willing to take the lead that early. But in the end, he just decided this tempo is just ridiculously slow. I'm going to have to go to the front. And it was a good move. It was almost like he was talking to his Queensland teammates down here in front of us and sort of saying, okay, someone's going to take this. We've got to go a bit quicker. And as we see that, we see the 3 Queenslanders out in front, dictating terms. And Lynchy's not here to see it.
Exactly. And sometimes when the pace isn't super hot, being off the front can be better, because when it's not hot and you're back in the pack, you're having to chop stride because you can't open up like you normally would, where when you're out in front, you have that ability to sort of just slow it down but still be open with your stride, knowing that you've got no one in front of you that's going to get in your way.
Yep.
So, and it makes a big difference in the end. So,
oh, as we see some rough and tumble, because athletes in the middle of that pack want to get out and cover the moves. But if you're stuck on that inside railing, Ben, it's really hard. You actually have to wait for the move. And in this case, there was no gap. Oh,
almost had
that was lucky that they stayed on their
down.
feet. Come on, guys, let's just string this out. Let's go a little bit faster now. And see, what's happening is if you are stuck on that inside railing, which you've always said, why don't you just hug the inside, make it sure that you're not running as far? This is what happens if you get stuck in a big field in the inside railing and you want to go with the move, and you're having to chop your stride down because someone in front doesn't have as long a stride as you. It actually ends up you suffer more than if you're out the front doing a free flow run, or on the side where you've got the exit routes. So a couple of athletes have recognised the fact that the tempo was starting to change a little bit and they were in bad position, so they used their bodies and found a gap that wasn't there. Got out, which then affects the whole field, because as soon as one athlete has to chop their stride, the ones who are behind them, it's like a domino effect. But luckily, all athletes are on their feet. And as we say that, the tempo slows down again. It's a really surgy race, this one, which isn't the easiest way to run distant races, but I think if you're going to be in a surgy race, you want to be out the front and controlling it, which it looks like. I mean, Ferguson looks as comfortable as anything. He's looking around and he's just, as is Thomas, looking around. Thomas is almost saying, can somebody else take this lead? I really don't want to be out here in the front. I'm doing it easy, but I'm just a little bit bored up here.
So it is the 3 Queenslanders off the front in Thomas, Ferguson and Robinson. And then the Victorian Naya, he's still sitting there.
Well, Naya can't.
Alberto.
Naya can't do anything even if he wants to at the minute because of where he's tucked in. So he's just going to have to bide his time and wait for one of these 3 Queenslanders to make their move so that he can get that gap, unless he uses his body to get out now. But he looks like he's quite comfortable and happy in that spot.
So the other athletes that are up there in that pack is Liam Back from New Zealand, Rage Noor from the ACT, and also Alan Dennis from Queensland. So
And
Queensland featuring a lot up the front of this.
And D'Alberto's in 4th for Victoria.
So still 10 athletes up there in that lead bunch, all with the ability to be able to place and find themselves on the podium here in this under-18 men's 3,000 metres. So coming in, based on the seeds, you would have thought that meet record could have been given a shake, but after the pace that was set in the first kilometre, I don't think we're going to see it too hot. As we come down the straight, we'll get a 2K split,
Was
and
5:54?
already it's well off the pace that we've seen in other races. So time isn't a factor here as they go through in 6:28 for the 2K.
No, that's 2 laps to go, 800 to go. So they hit 2K in 5:54.
Sorry, just ignore me.
That's okay, you're a 400-metre runner. I got this.
After they went through one lap, I was
Yeah, you were
lost.
done. You were like, oh my goodness, these guys are amazing.
I was
How are they
lost.
still running? No, they're starting to stretch it out now down the back straight. They know that the athletes who don't have that raw speed, you don't want to leave it. You don't want to let them still be there with like the final kick. So some of them are going to do the long run for home, which I think is a great idea because it breaks that field up. Having said that, though, it is often the tough way to run. But we've got Ferguson and Thomas who have looked comfortable throughout this whole race, and they've basically been, running together the whole way, looking at each other, covering each other's moves. They've broken free of the next pack, which, it's stays like this, the battle's going to be out for who's going to win the gold out of these two and who's going to win the bronze. But 1 lap to go, 400 metres to go. Battle of the wheels. The 2 Queenslanders out the front who in 3rd position. You still have the other Queenslander, Kai Robinson, who is going to fight to see if he can hold off the fast finishing athletes.
So as they move into the back straight, it's still those 2 Queenslanders in Thomas and also Ferguson.
Thomas has broken free, but he's finding it hard to drop Ferguson, who is still making sure that his cadence is good and he's turning his legs over. But you just think that Thomas is a little bit more relaxed. He's looked great throughout the race and he's really opening up his stride now and using those arms. And
It certainly is, and he comes around the bend with only 120 metres to run. The Queenslander will enter the straight with a clear view of the finish line. His teammate is in behind him, but this is going to be all Thomas, Drew Thomas from Queensland. He's going to come down to take the win. Ferguson will be second, but the battle is on for 3rd, and it looks like Naya is going to get there in the end. Fast finishing, flashes home just to take the bronze medal over D'Alberto. So strong running there by the Victorian. An amazing last 400 metres. It was a battle between Robinson and Back from New Zealand, but the Victorians
yeah,
have
well,
flashed home to snatch the bronze medal away. from a Queensland trifecta.
And Naya will be ecstatic with that because obviously D'Alberto was probably more expected to win that bronze. But Naya looks like he's very happy with that, as he should be. It was a fantastic run. He covered the moves early and was able to finish with steam.
But what a race it was between Thygesen and Thomas. They were the form runners coming in, and Thomas, in the end, just too strong for Thygesen. And he'll find himself on top of the podium with a gold medal around his neck. And he'll travel back to the Sunshine State with all smiles, I would imagine. It'll be a pleasant plane ride home.
Oh, you
Unless he
blink.
drove down here.
Yeah, that's true. Well, if he drove down, it should be like the football where you put your scarf out the window, have your medal out there.
Yeah.
You can go through drive-through and get freebies, I reckon, with that gold medal.
So that concludes our morning session here at the 2019 Australian Track and Field Championships. We will be back with you at 3 p.m. this afternoon, where we will kick on to the afternoon and evening session. We've got some amazing action on the track and in the field for you this evening with men's high jump, women's pole vault, the men's discus final, and then on the track we do have the women's 1500, the men's 800, the men's and women's 400, and the men's and women's 100 finals.
Well, I'm going to have to go and have a little kip because I'm that excited, just so I come back and I'm ready for the action.
Can't wait for it. So we'll see you later this afternoon. Enjoy your lunch break. Go and get some food, and we'll see you back here at 3 p.m.